Okay, so this is a very biased statement, but after studying all the pre-patch lore, we might be entering one of the best expansions per the lore that's going on. And I only say that because so far it's really, really good. So, that's a very strong statement, but let's take a step back and let's go over all the pre-patch quest lore that you may not have read because you were just skipping through and getting all the mechanics done, which is perfectly fine, but to understand what's going on with the lore, the pre-patch has a lot of information. So let's go ahead and dive in and do a little recap of everything that happened in the pre-patch and find out what's going on in World of Warcraft. Now, if you're curious, these are the quests that we're going to cover. I'm just going to put them up on the screen here. If you want to read each quest individually, then go ahead and check out the link down below. So to open up, when you log in with your character, you get an invitation from Rathian that he wants to talk with you in Orgrimmar or Stormwind. We're going to cover all this from the Alliance perspective. I wanted to do both, but I was sick last week and I ran out of time. So in the quest, Rathian states that his people left the Dragon Isles during the Sundering, which happened about 10,000 years ago. And now they need the help of the mortals to regain their legacy. But when you meet with Rathian, he says the invite extends to you as well. Also that Turalyon, who's kind of leading Stormwind right now, and I'll explain why later, he's accepted the Aspect's invite to go to the Dragon Isles. He also mentions that there's some new faces in town, which are the Drakthir, and they're big admirers already of Rathian because originally they were under the command of Neltharion. Anyways, when you talk with Rathian, he says he wants to have a little chat. So then there's a cutscene, and Rathian says he's really excited that the Alliance is accepting this invitation from Alexstrasza to go to the Dragon Isles, but he wants to make sure that the Alliance isn't bringing any baggage in this expedition. And Turalyon does assure Rathian that we're not going to be bringing a bunch of drama to the game, but he also talks about how he's putting the Explorers League in charge of a huge expedition. But then Scale Commander Aziraphale, who's standing right next to everybody, does mention that this is the homeland of the Drakthir, and this isn't a place for you to come and start looting and tearing apart. So after that, you talk with Toddy Whiskers, who is leading the expedition, and she says that we need to gather a crew, so we need to get scholars, artisans, explorers, all those types of people. And you can go find them within Stormwind, and you do so by going to different locations within the city and saying, hey, we're about to leave, get ready. When speaking with Aziraphale, he likes the enthusiasm from Toddy, but he hopes that she realizes that the Dragon Isles is actually quite dangerous. He also says that he needs to speak with Rathian about this mission that's coming up, and he tells you that his fellow Drakthir are around the city exploring and meeting new places and, you know, kind of getting to know Stormwind. But he tells you that you need to meet with Dervishian, who's a trusted lieutenant, and spread the information that we're about to leave and that everyone needs to meet at the docks. So this is where you run around, you gather all the people that are going to be involved in the expedition in the different parts of the city, and you meet up with Dervishian, who's doing like this training circle on top of this tower with all the other Drakthir, but you tell Dervishian that, hey, we're about to leave, everyone needs to meet at the docks, and they fly away and head on over there. When you get to the docks, you end up talking with Toddy, and unfortunately, Toddy tells you that there's these turbulent elemental storms that are really causing a ruckus over in the sea. And because of that, we won't be able to travel to the Dragon Isles yet. And that's when Khadgar arrives through a portal, and he says that he just had an interesting conversation and he wants to tell you all about it. So there's this cutscene where Kaligos walks into this room and he's speaking with Khadgar. Basically, Kaligos tells him that Rathian was fighting off another dragon called Raszageth. And Raszageth let Rathian live so he could relay a message to pretty much all the other aspects. And here's what's talked about. Basically, the 5 aspects were given this gift of the aspects from a titan named Tyr. But there were 4 dragons who rejected the titan's gift. These are the 4 incarnates of the elemental forces, and really what they want to do is wreck everything up. Raszageth is one of them. Now, as far as the other incarnates, when you look at WoW PD or something like that, you find out the others are Iridikron, Vyranoth, and Fryrak. Don't know much about them right now, unless you want to read up more. I'm not sure where they got this information from, but I'm just going to go off of what Wowpedia is actually telling us. Anyways, Rathian says that to stop Raszageth, we need to get the aspect power back. But the problem is that the Keeper Tyr, the titan that gave the aspects their power, he's been dead for quite a while. But in Uldaman, there's a disc that possibly has a lot of Tyr's memories still on it. So we need to go in there and get that, and that's going to be kind of the start of getting these aspect powers back into the aspects so they can be protectors once again. So Khadgar also talks about Raszageth releasing primalist forces. And these are going to be in the form of elemental storms that are hitting Kalimdor and the Eastern Kingdoms. It's going to cause a whole bunch of chaos, but you're basically going to go out there and stop these storms, which is what you've been doing for the past 2 weeks on the pre-patch. Now, when talking to Aziraphale, he introduces you to another scale commander named Emberthal, which Emberthal tells you how the Drakthir just awakened from being asleep for a very, very long time, but they only have a fraction of their memory, but Dormu helped them remember like what happened in the past. And what do you learn from this conversation? That in the past, about 20,000 years ago, Deathwing ordered all the Dracthyr to go back to their creches. Malygos put them to sleep, and now they've awakened because the Primalists came around and woke up Razageth. Now you're probably wondering what the Primalists are. Primalists, think of them as like a religious sect. They follow the Prime Incarnates, so they're like followers of those dragons. So the Primalists came over and they woke up. How that event all went down, I'm not too sure, but because Razageth woke up, the Dracthyr also woke up as well. When you run over to Turalyon and listen in on their conversation, he talks about certain dragonkin, going bad, like Deathwing. And that's just one dragon that I kind of relate to as far as going bad, but he brings up Onyxia as an example. And because of that, he's kind of cautious about the Dragonflight and trusting them so much, so he wants Matthias Shaw to basically hire the mages to start doing investigations instead of using just spies and all that, normal stuff. Now, when you're talking with Gen, Greymane, and Matthias, they talk about how Anduin hasn't been seen since the Shadowlands, and how it's been a few years since everyone returned from Oribos and all the Covenants and all that stuff. So we've had a bit of a break between the expansions, which is quite nice. But Anduin is missing, and they're waiting for their king to come back. Until then, Turalyon is in charge. Now, when talking with Toddy again, she says to go speak with Stormhunter William. He's leading the investigation on all these storms that are happening over in this continent and also in Kalimdor. And also, he'll provide you with storm chasing equipment, which is the pre-patch equipment that you're going to buy. And while you're doing that, Toddy is going to coordinate all the prep work to get ready to head out to the Dragon Isles. So basically, when you talk with Stormhunter William, he just says he's your guy. He's been, prepping for this for a while for some odd reason, and he's got all the gear that you need. That's basically it. When you speak with Khadgar, he says that he wants you to gather these elemental forces or like stuff that the elementals are going to drop, and he'll study those when you bring them back. And basically that's the daily quest that you've been doing for a while. Now, as far as Uldaman, there are 5 books inside the new instance, and there's some pretty important lore regarding that. The first book you get is the observational report about Earthen. It talks about the Earthen, which are like the creations from the Titans, and how some of them left Uldaman and now they're known as dwarves. This book is written by a Titan named Watcher Millennia. And the second book you get is called To My Staunchest Allies. Now this book is kind of cool because it's written to Ironaya, which is that one Titan you fight originally in Uldaman, but it's written by Tyr to her in case Tyr dies, which he did. And just a little bit of back history, Tyr did die in Tirisfal Glades, and if you look at the name of Tirisfal, Tirisfal is the Vrykul translation of Tyr's Fall, so that makes a little bit more sense of why that place is called what it is. So other than the Disc of Norgannon that was left in Uldaman, Tyr left another disc that has a lot of his own memories on it. In this book, he tries to explain that this disc needs to be brought back to a place called Uldoris, or the aspects like to call this place Tyrhold. And once this disc was returned back to Tyrhold, Ionara was supposed to gather something that was made specifically for the aspects. So the third book that you get is Edicts of the Prime Designate, Volume 742. This book is written by Odin, and basically it's him getting pretty pissed off and setting up a bunch of regulations. So the Keepers are really interested in the mortals and how they operate and everything, but Odin wants to keep everything in control and let them know that, hey, the Titans are the ones who are really in charge here. So the first regulation that he puts in there is that all historical record documenting the advancements of the Black Empire are to be purged. So the Black Empire was a dark civilization that was established by the old gods, and Odin doesn't want the mortals to know anything about that, and he doesn't want the mortals to know that the old gods are pretty much held in confinement. Well, we know now that that basically didn't happen because we fought a lot of old gods since. The second regulation is that he wants to attribute all accomplishments and works of wonder to the Titans alone, basically saying that the Titans are above the mortals and the story. And the third regulation is that he does not want to share knowledge of the first ones, because he thinks that the mortals couldn't conceive the wonders that the makers granted to the Titans in Zereth Ordis, and basically it would just kind of confuse the mortals. Well, that one really didn't pan out because we've been to Zereth Mortis and we kind of know everything that happened. So the fourth book that you read is Wreckage Analysis Report, and it's written by a Titan named Watcher Perithalis, and it's written specifically to Odin. So here's the thing, Odin sent expeditions to go find a place named Avaloran, but each expedition has failed and there's been no survivors, and this book talks about the findings of the wreckage from the third expedition. And this Titan who's writing to Odin is pleading with him to say, hey, let's not send another expedition out because they're just gonna die. It's kind of meaningless, please stop. So that's about all we know about this place called Avaloran. Maybe we'll see it in another patch in Dragon Isles. I hope we do. It sounds pretty interesting. The last book that you read is Progress Report Uldoris. And this is written by Tyr to Loken. And Loken, we know, turned pretty bad and did a bunch of bad stuff. Yeah, it's a whole nother story. Anyways, Tyr talks about how the Halls of Infusion are now operational. Now, from what I'm understanding, this place imbues order magic into the Wellspring, which is a place that the Proto-Drakes drank out of. And in the book, Tyr hopes that Loken's investigation on how Yogg-Saron compromised the living waters gives him some answers to what's going on. Which then talks about how the water purification is working and how another evolution of Galakrond basically won't ever happen. Because what happened is that Yogg-Saron poisoned the water, and Galakrond drank from it, and that's what made him corrupt. Tyr also talks about the construction of Uldoris, or what the aspects like to call Tyrhold, and how it's being built on top of the Halls of Infusion. And basically, this place is made for the 5 aspects. And in the end of the book, it talks about how Odin doesn't really agree with the idea of the 5 aspects, and Tyr doesn't agree with Odin. Now, when you're traveling through Uldaman and you're picking up all these books, in the end, you face off with this guy named Chrono Lord Dios? I don't know how to pronounce his name. And he's what we like to call an infinite dragon. Don't know much about them, but basically what he does is he finds the disc that has Tyr's memories on it, and he takes it for himself, saying that the aspects can't get a hold of this because they get their powers back. So our whole plan of finding a way to get the aspects' powers back to them basically just failed, and we need to find another way, or I don't know, maybe we'll see this disc later on in the future. And when you return to Rathian, he says that he'll tell Alex Strasza that whole plan kind of just got shot, out of the water, and she's gonna have to find another way to get the powers back. And that is basically it for the pre-patch quest lore. If you missed it all, if you didn't read any of it, well, now you know exactly what happened. But now we're gonna bust into the actual expansion of Dragonflight. And I'm really, really excited because I thought this lore was really cool. It was a good, kind of like introduction to what we're going to be dealing with and who we're going to be talking to, all these new characters. And the cool thing is that it's based off of lore that was already written, in the past. And what I mean is there's no new novel that's coming out, kind of like, Eye of the Storm came out right before BFA, or Shadows Rising came out before Shadowlands and stuff like that. No, the book that you really should be reading is Dawn of the Aspects. So I hope that you learned a lot about what you may have missed. I just wanted to recap everything really quick. And if you really like this content, make sure to subscribe to the channel. I'd love to have you around. And before I go, I do want to give a big shout out to the Order of Lore Masters. Those are the people who are the members of this channel. Every single one of you, your contributions do really help a lot with the production of these videos. And I'm really excited to start making more content because we're deep into the launch of this expansion, and I can't wait to start recording more and hanging out with you guys on the stream. It's gonna be a lot of fun. So the next time we meet, I'll be covering the first parts of the quest lore on the Dragon Isles, and we'll see what's going on in the Tales of Azeroth.